Hey y'all, Andrea from Andrea Speaks TV, back with more news and commentary you can use, y'all. I want to come back. I did a poll on the community tab, and I was telling you all I had 3 video uploads coming. One on the food shortage update, border crisis update, and healthcare. Okay, well, the healthcare update is already loaded to the channel, so now I'm back with an update on the border crisis, migrant crisis, and it's pretty concerning. Okay, make sure you like this video, share this video. I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and join our community here. Listen, y'all, okay, in addition to the videos that I have already put out regarding the migrant crisis that's very concerning, I also want to come on and let you all know that it seemed like it has almost, the whole border crisis, migrant crisis, has actually gone to another level. Okay, so much so that mayors in some of the largest cities in the United States that also happen to be what is termed sanctuary cities, they're actually calling for action. Okay, so 2 stories that I want to bring to you related to the border crisis, migrant crisis. But let's talk about this one first, y'all. Okay, do you know that a record number of migrants crossed the southern border in December? Okay, and according to my sources, it is not over. Okay, listen to this, y'all. Okay, the crisis at the southern border, okay, according to my sources, has reached new heights this week, with the number of migrant encounters in December already shattering records. Okay, with 3 days of the month remaining. Well, at the time of this article, it's 3 days of the month remaining. Okay, more than, listen to this number, y'all, 276,000 asylum seekers, according to my sources, hoping to cross the U.S.-Mexico border, have been encountered by U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents in December. Okay, that number is the highest number for a single month in history, according to the shocking data, okay, obtained by Fox News. You know, I have had a chance to read the comments here on the channel, in the videos, the comments from the videos that I have already uploaded. It's very clear that many of you are concerned. There's a growing concern across the country regarding the number of migrants who were crossing the border. Okay, many of you all, as I have shared, and as you have shared with me, many of you all have said, you know, that you're seeing this firsthand, the migrants in your communities, and you know, something needs to be done about this, right? When you think about it, can you just show up at a country's border and just say, hey, I'm here? And just, you know, can you show up at a country's border and just say, hey, I'm here, and just walk in? They're going to look and say, you know, no, you got to go through the proper steps. And so, you know, many of you all have expressed your concerns regarding that, and have even used that as an example. Okay, something to think about. All right. Now, that figure, okay, according to reports, that figure, 276,000, is expected to notably rise with 3 days of the month remaining, and the migrant crossings topping 10,000 some days in December. Okay, that's a lot, y'all. Now, I don't know how many people they have on the border patrol there, but it sounds like that number is far greater than the manpower that is there at the U.S. border, okay, U.S.-Mexico border. Now, the previous monthly record set in September, when 269,735 migrants were encountered. So they're saying that this total, okay, exceeds, as we can see, it exceeds the previous monthly record that was set back in September, okay? Now, the December figure also includes 225,000 migrants taken into custody at the border during the first 27 days of December. Okay, that surpassed the previous high set in May 2022, when the Border Patrol processed 224,000 migrants between ports of entry. The new figures do not include migrants showing up at official ports of entry to apply for asylum through a new app introduced by the Biden administration. Okay, roughly 50,000 migrants are funneled through that system each month. That's according to CBS. Now, federal agents took 225,000 migrants into custody in December. Reuters officials are struggling to manage. That was reported by Reuters. Okay, federal agents took 225,000 migrants into custody in December. That was reported that That news was reported by the news source Reuters, okay? Officials are struggling to manage an accelerating influx of asylum seekers at overwhelmed border locations. I talked about that, with agents bracing for the arrival of a massive caravan of up to 15,000 migrants in the coming weeks, y'all, okay? Here's a quote by a former U.S. immigration official under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama, who said, and I quote, "It's an unsustainable number of arrivals," okay? This person also went on to say that we can't keep funding the system for more and more people. It's challenging at every level, okay? Meanwhile, sources say that another 11,000 migrants are huddled in camps in Mexico as they await an opportunity to cross over into the U.S., okay? Let me know your thoughts on this. As I shared in a previous video, Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Mexico President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador this week to address the spiraling crisis. Not really sure yet what came out of the meeting. We know they talked about, helping countries that, would be considered poor in by certain standards or certain criteria, helping to strengthen them and trying to find out the underlying cause, the root causes of why so many people are looking to leave these particular countries, okay? And so that was mentioned as well, okay? Now, mayors from 3 major cities, okay, are asking for additional resources to address the sudden influx. While short-term challenges posed by the surge are absorbed at the border in nearby U.S. towns, migrants inevitably, sources say, fan out across the nation, okay? The 3 major cities, New York, Chicago, and Denver, held a joint press conference this week to amplify their concerns. Mayor Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, had this to say, and I quote, "As temperatures drop in New York City, Chicago, Denver, and other impacted cities, we are calling for the federal declaration of emergency, financial support, and a national resettlement strategy." Okay, that's according to Mayor Eric Adams, okay? Also, okay, I want to mention in a separate article that since last year, according to sources, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott has bused more than 80,000 migrants to cities across the country. We've talked about that here on the channel. Those cities include Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City, and Washington, D.C., all of which the article says are led by Democratic mayors, okay? Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, you've heard me speak about him before. He told CNN on Friday, and I quote, "The international crisis that we're experiencing right now is being subsidized by local economies," he's saying, okay? He also went on to say, and I quote, "That is not sustainable. And that's why we need Congress to actually have appropriations to make sure that what refugees from Ukraine receive, we have to ask, why aren't those same support services being provided for individuals who are coming from the continent of Africa and Central and South America?" Okay, these are the words of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Okay, let me know your thoughts on this. Now, the city shelter system for migrants in Chicago is said to have reached capacity, the mayor said, and without a good coordinated solution, the migrant crisis, and I quote, "is going to crush local economies." Okay, let me know your thoughts on that. You got to think about it. You know, the resources there in some of the communities, people may say the resources are already stretched thin. You have the local residents, for example, with food banks, they may have had to pull back some of their services, and it may already be a strain just to help people in those local communities, the residents there, okay? But when you add in migrants who are being, whether it's dropped off, planned or unplanned, who are being brought to those communities, and they're looking for ways to, establish and get settled and start building up their lives, that adds on to what may be already a stressed and stretched thin economy. Okay, let me know your thoughts on this. Okay, I'm curious to know what you think about this. Denver, I haven't spoken about Denver, Colorado as it relates to the migrant crisis, but according to my source, Denver is expected to spend about 10% of its entire city budget on migrant shelter and aid next year. Okay, that's according to their mayor, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston. Okay, we talked about New York City. New York City has received more than 161,000 migrants since 2022, and the influx will likely cost an estimated excuse me, y'all ready for this number? It's estimated to cost $12 billion. Excuse me, y'all, sorry about it. It's estimated to, let me read it again, okay? New York City, which we've talked about, has received more than 161,000 migrants since 2022, and the influx will likely cost an estimated $12 billion over 3 years, according to Mayor Eric Adams, okay? He also went on to say this national crisis, he's calling it a national crisis, y'all. This national crisis is impacting, and it has the potential to destabilize the financial obligations that we have in our cities, okay? Now, I shared with you all also in a video where Mayor Eric Adams recently announced budget cuts throughout the city of New York to areas such as education, which teachers, I believe it's a union system there, they're fighting back against that. Cuts to education, cuts to the sanitation department. They even talked about cuts to the police department, as well as the library, public library up there, as well as other areas. And so, you know, he's making this cry saying, hey, this is a national crisis with the potential to destabilize the financial obligations of local economies, okay? Mayor Eric Adams even went on to say that New York City might reach a, and I quote, breaking point, which could include forced cutbacks to school programs, the police department, trash pickup, and resources for senior citizens, okay? I just talked about that. He also added that every agency and delivery of service in my city is going to be drastically impacted by the actions of picking up the tab of $5 billion this fiscal year, $12 billion of 3 years, okay? Now, what has Governor Abbott's office said? Governor Greg Abbott out of Texas, his office has defended Texas's practice of busing migrants to other states, saying, and I quote, the busing mission is to provide much needed relief to our overwhelmed border community. So think about it, y'all. I could imagine, and I believe he said this before, you know, from my understanding, you all let me know, especially if you're watching from Texas and you're in this area. They have been sending out the same cry, it seems like, and I'm not saying that in a way to be funny, but the same cry for help that the mayors of New York City, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, the same cry for help that they're now sending out. It seemed like Texas, ever since I started covering the migrant crisis and border crisis here on the channel, the governor of Texas, he's been, the state of Texas has been sending the same cry, but not a lot of help has been received to help Texas. So I thought that was kind of ironic, okay? Now, as for the federal government, the Biden administration has acknowledged some mayors' requests to help alleviate the shelter crisis and streamline work authorization for eligible non-citizens, okay? Here's a quote from a White House spokesperson who said, and I quote, President Biden is committed to addressing this problem. That's why he submitted a supplemental funding request to Congress, which includes additional resources to secure the border with more law enforcement, more grant funding for jurisdictions hosting migrants, and funding to accelerate the processing of work permits for eligible non-citizens. Okay, let me know your thoughts, y'all. Are these even real solutions? Okay, now the Department of Justice, okay, in what seems like maybe a twist of events, right? The Department of Justice has threatened to sue Texas over its new immigration law in a letter Thursday, according to a copy of the letter, okay? The threat marks the latest escalation between President Joe Biden and Republican Governor Greg Abbott over the handling of the U.S. border, okay? Earlier this month, Governor Abbott signed Senate Bill 4 into law, which gives local law enforcement the power to arrest migrants and empowering judges to remove migrants from the border. The measure is expected to take effect in March, okay? Now, the White House actually slammed the new law, calling it, and I quote, incredibly extreme, okay? Let me know your thoughts about that. In a letter to Abbott, the Department of Justice argued the measure is, and I quote, preempted and violates the U.S. Constitution and risk interfering with the federal government's ability to enforce immigration law, okay? Also, the letter went on to say, accordingly, the United States intends to file suit to enjoin the enforcement of SB 4 unless Texas agrees to refrain from enforcing the law. The letter, signed by Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Brian Boynton, states, and I quote, the United States is committed to both securing the border and ensuring the processing of non-citizens consistent with the Immigration and Nationality Act, or INA. SB4 is contrary, they're saying, to these goals. Okay, now, Governor Abbott then went on to slam the Justice Department's letter late Thursday and accused President Joe Biden of, and I quote, destroying America. Okay, let me know your thoughts on that, y'all. Okay, it seems like this is becoming an even more tense and worsening situation. Okay, Governor Abbott had this to say, and I quote, they say the source says that this was a post on X, and I quote, the Biden administration not only refuses to enforce current U.S. immigration laws, they now want to stop Texas from enforcing laws against illegal immigration. Okay. And then he went on to say, I've never seen such hostility to the rule of law in America. Okay. Thursday's legal threat comes after DOJ, Department of Justice, sued Texas over its use of floating barriers in the Rio Grande. The threat also comes after Texas sued the Biden administration over allegations that federal agents were cutting razor wire, y'all, in Eagle Pass that was put up by Abbott's border security initiative. Both lawsuits are still making their way through the courts. Okay. That's pretty much it, y'all, that I wanted to share in this update on the migrant crisis. It seems like things are getting worse. It almost seems like, just based on what I read, the information I read, Texas, for whatever reason, whether they feel like they're getting very limited help, it seems like they're taking their own steps to try to not only secure the U.S. border, but secure the border for their cities and communities in the state of Texas. But from my understanding, every step they've taken, there has been opposition from, the higher ups. So, and we see that now by the lawsuits that are being filed in the court of law. So it's very concerning. It seems like the border is wide open, although White House spokespeople, spokespersons, U.S. officials have said that it's not. You look at some of the images. Look at the thumbnail, y'all. You have waves and waves, thousands and thousands of people lined up, walking together to come into the country. People from all walks of life. We don't know what their intentions are, whether they're coming to do good, or I pray not, but coming to do, we don't know, we just don't know, right? We don't know what their intentions are. It's very concerning to see, but I want to know your thoughts. Okay. Thank you so much for trusting me to bring you this news. Many of you all are just now learning about this, and I'm glad that I could be a source of information and news for you. Okay. I'm going to keep you updated on this growing border crisis and migrant crisis. And thank you so much for supporting me here on Andrea Speaks TV. I'll be back with more news and commentary you can use. Let me know your thoughts in a comment, okay? Take care.